Welcome to Tech Talk. Today we're going to be talking about 3D printing. So, what is 3D printing? Well, in its most simple definition, 3D printing is the process of creating a physical object from a digital model by layering material, which is typically plastic, repeatedly until you have a completed physical solid object. 3D printing is a game-changing technology that allows us to easily and sometimes even quickly create a physical object. The things you can create are virtually endless. Examples might include model replicas, machines or inventions, toys, molds, household items, costumes, so much more. 3D printing is performed by a process called additive manufacturing. That is, it builds objects layer by layer from bottom up until the complete object is created. The low cost of 3D printers allows homes and businesses to utilize this technology fairly inexpensively. The first step of 3D printing involves creating or acquiring a 3D model, which is commonly an STL file. The STL file basically has all the instructions needed to recreate the model used by another piece of software called the splicer. You don't have to design your own models in order to use a 3D printer. In fact, for the first year I owned my printer, I only created a few very simplistic models from time to time. One of my favorite sources for finding models is thingiverse.com. There you can download STL files created by a huge community of people and quickly import it in your splicing software, which then generates the G-code needed to print the model. There are a number of applications you can use for designing models, which can vary in price from free to some costing thousands of dollars. We'll cover some of this in a future episode. Well, this video is the first installment to our video series on 3D printing. If you're interested, you may want to click the subscribe button so you won't miss any of the upcoming episodes in this series. All right, let's go have fun. Okay, let's go over some of the basic components of a 3D printer. Here we have a picture of the filament. This is on the back of my FlashForge Creator Pro 2016 edition. What you see here is a spool of white filament. On the left, it's PLA. On the right-hand side, there's a black spool of PLA as well. You'll see these tubes that are coming up into the printer on the left and the right-hand side. That's where the plastic itself, or the filament, feeds up through the tube and on into the extruder. Here we have on the left-hand side the display for my particular printer. It allows you to check the progress of the 3D print. You can see here it says print from SD, where I can select the model. There's preheat to be able to set the temperature on the left or the right side. Then there's utilities for loading and unloading the filament. On the right hand side, you see an up, down, left, right navigation panel. The OK button is for selecting an option. This allows you to easily navigate the menu system of the printer. Here we have the extruders. There's two in this particular printer, your left and right. The filament comes down through the tubes on into the extruder, and then it gets heated up. Next we have the cooling fans. This can be used by the software to be able to control the temperature or adjust the temperature as needed to maintain a constant temperature. Here we have the print bed. This is where your 3D printed models will wind up. As the print head moves around the platform, it's going to create the object directly on the print bed. In this case, what you'll see is I have a glass bed. I wound up upgrading the bed that was on here to a glass bed, primarily because it adheres a little bit better to ABS plastic, which is a material I was printing quite a bit with. I still do on occasion. I've pretty much switched over to PLA. It's just easier to print. With ABS, you do get a lot of warping, and sometimes it's really hard to dial it in just right, even with a glass bed. So I just found that PLA is quite a bit easier to print with. But if I want to print some objects that need to be outside, then of course ABS is the way to go. And there are times when I do that. Here's the hot end of the printer. The filament comes down through the extruder, gets heated up, and comes out the end and onto the print bed. Okay, next, what to look for in a 3D printer. Here are some tips and hints that may help you decide on what type of options to get for a 3D printer if you're considering buying one yourself. First, will the items you create be used outside? If yes, you want to consider a printer with a heated bed. That is, ABS is the plastic that you're going to want to use. It's made of an oil-based material, and it has a higher melting point than PLA. If you're going to be using the object that you create in a hot car, for instance, or outside in the direct sunlight, ABS is certainly a much more reliable material for outside use than PLA. It does extrude fumes, which may be unpleasant. There is a distinct odor when you're printing in ABS. There's some debate regarding its safety. I'll save that for a future video, but we're not going to get in that too much now. Also, ABS is very sturdy and it holds up well to external impacts. So these are some things to consider when you're deciding whether or not you want a heated bed or not. Next, do you want to print with two colors at the same time? If so, you definitely need a dual extruder. Dual extruders are nice when using dissolvable support material. Also, it minimizes the setup time by having two different colors available at any given time. As you can see from my prior pictures, I had a white filament spool on the left and black on the right. It's so much easier to just swap colors or even print in both colors at the same time if I wanted to, which I've done on a couple occasions, but it's not something I do very often. There's rarely a need to do that, but it is very convenient for being able to swap colors without having to load and unload the filament each time you want to change colors. So, if you're on a budget, how can you get started cheaply? Well, first off, you want to consider a single extruder. Yes, you'll have to load and unload filament anytime you want to change colors. You don't have the luxury of being able to swap from left to right. That may be worth it to you. You'll save quite a bit of cost right there just getting a single extruder. Also, PLA, plastic does not require a heated bed, so that's also going to cut down the cost quite a bit. You're still going to be able to create some outstanding prints, so it's not a huge deal. But if you're going to be printing a lot of stuff that requires a greater tolerance in temperatures, then you'll want to use ABS, and in that case, you'll need a heated bed. The cost of a spool of PLA and ABS are not much different, if at all. In a lot of cases, there's zero difference between the two. So that's not really a consideration for you at this point.